Well, it's now time for our celebrity chat, and today we are privileged and honored to have the jazz legend, and that is Marcus Miller. Marcus, it's great to have you in Kenya, and I know you've not had time to enjoy the experience, the Kenyan experience, but tell us a little bit about your experience in Kenya so far.
So far, so good. We arrived last night. There's a flight that comes in, I think maybe 10 o'clock in the evening, and so I got to see a little bit of the highway at night. But I'm excited when we have a minute to go around and get a taste of the Kenyan life, of the Nairobi life. I'm really excited. I haven't been.
You've not had a chance to, try out Nairobi?
No, I haven't had a chance to try out Nairobi yet, but I will.
You have done and produced music with the likes of Kirk Whalum, the likes of Al Clue, the likes of, Aretha Franklin. Do you have a favorite? Do you have one that stands out for you?
For me, the most important artist that I work with was Miles Davis, as you mentioned. He's very important, of course. Anybody who works with Miles is affected, and they always grow from their experience with him. Who else? There's an R&B singer, Luther Vandross, and he was a good friend of mine, and we made records for a long time. In my opinion, probably one of the greatest singers ever, especially in his era. You know, he was the top, and everybody was trying to sing like Luther, so he's very important. A gentleman who was here a couple of years ago, David Sanborn, is very, very important to me. I began playing with him very young, and he encouraged me to write music for him, and I ended up writing music, still writing music for him to this day. But he gave me a lot of opportunities. Sometimes I play all the instruments on his records, you know what I mean? So he was really important to me.
You wrote an intro to a song for Aretha Franklin, which is I Want to Make It Up to You. Tell me a little bit about that and what the experience was like.
Well, as I said, I was working with Luther. He was my buddy. We were in Roberta Flack's band together, Luther and I. And we made Luther's first demo while we were working with Roberta Flack. Anyway, he became a big star very quickly. And Clive Davis, who was the head of Aretha Franklin's label, he called Luther and said, "Do you want to produce Aretha Franklin?" So he's like, "Yeah, of course. That's, she's one of his heroes." So he called me and said, "We got to write some music for Aretha Franklin." I said, "For who?" He said, "Aretha Franklin." I said, "Really? Okay." And so I wrote a few songs and gave them to Luther, and I wrote the music and he wrote the melody and the lyrics, so we were writing together. And you can't imagine what it's like to write a song and then hear Aretha Franklin sing it.
You have a very busy schedule. I mean, you've literally gone to all parts of the world with your music. How do you balance your family and music life?
Well, I started off as a studio musician, and that means I would just stay in New York, going from studio to studio, playing for different people: Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Frank Sinatra, whoever needed bass, And so I wasn't traveling like that, and so I had a normal family life after the studio. During the day, I'd go home at night, and it was cool. Around 35 is when I decided I would like to meet the people who have been listening to my music for so long. And the music business was changing, and it was better to go on the road and start traveling. So I started traveling, and it really changed my life. The first few years were difficult because, for instance, if you were a hotel in Africa, calling home was really expensive, But now, communication is a lot easier, and they have video chats and stuff like that, where you can feel a little bit more connected. And now that our kids are grown, we have 4 kids, my wife and I, we have 2 boys, 2 girls. Now that they're grown, when my wife is ready, she travels with me, and that makes it very easy, So it's very difficult. It's probably the most challenging thing is balancing your schedule, but it has to be done or else you go crazy.
Now, some of us, listen to music to relax, and jazz specifically, just, to chill out. But this is what you do for your life. This is what you do every single day. So what is it that Marcus Miller does to relax?
Well, I do the same thing. I usually don't listen to my own music, but I listen to other music. I like to exercise. I play basketball. I like photography. I was racing cars for a while, but my wife put a stop to that because it's too dangerous, But I think it's important to live life, too, so you have something to bring to your music.
No, I've heard you say that you can change the world with music. How do you do that?
Well, when I was 8 years old, Martin Luther King was assassinated, right? At the time, I didn't even know who Martin Luther King was. The day that he was assassinated, my parents were very upset. and they explained to me who he was. And you turn on the television, and you saw thousands and thousands of people walking, holding hands, singing, "We Shall Overcome." And it's a song that's still in my head now, because even though I was only 8 years old, I got the sense that this song that they were singing was giving them strength to get through this very difficult situation. I think from that point, I realized how important music is. It brings people together. It makes people realize what they have in common, you know. And in church, my father played the organ in church, and it was the same thing. So I knew